classic. Look at this hat. People, we are beautiful when we come together on one common goal. I'm loving all these hats. Come on, people, put your hats in the chat. Thank you.
Put your hat on, show your face. Like to
Good
see
morning.
everybody's face with the hat on.
Yes, good morning, everyone.
Oh, I like that hat. What's got that? Paige, nice looking hat. That's a good looking hat.
Thank you. Paige is in the running for you know, we got some
Like it, Janet.
Thank you. Anthony, you're in the honorable mention category. I love the hat. Oh, Janet Harmon. Okay, wait a minute. That is our, you know, honorable mention
The
hat.
Raging Grannies. You can't read the buttons well, but yeah, here I am.
Oh, everybody's looking beautiful on this Saturday, knowing that it's going to be 60 degrees today and 39 tomorrow. Who could have thunk?
Now, those who are in their house,
You could have thought REACT understands what's happening with this temperature switch and swap. You know best.
Yes. And I think we're all in agreement there. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It is Hat Day on February 12th. Thank you so much for joining us, showing your hats, showing your working with us here. So good morning to you all. You look good.
Morning to you too.
All right, put your cameras on, people. We like to see if you have a hat. If you don't have the ability to put your camera on, that's okay. But it's Hat Day. The Raging Grannies hat. Okay, Janet, I see you. The Raging Grannies. Jay Holmes, what's that on your hat, Mr. Sir? What's on your hat? You can put it in the chat. Thanks.
Okay, I'll put it in the chat.
All right,
Hey, what's
Joel, what is that on the hat? I see you on the side.
yeah,
It's
they're
green.
coming. They're coming over today. They're coming.
I love it. It's green. Wow, I love it. Love it.
National Lawyers Guild, Legal Observer. We've been there for REACT in Harlem many, many times.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. It is a great to see everybody here. We'll be starting shortly. We're just doing our little introductions and hat. What is Hat Day? Tradition, history. There is none, Stuart. We're just doing it. We're just winging it today. Just something different to get everybody started. Thank you for participating, everyone. If you don't have a hat, it's okay. You're still welcome here at REACT. We take everybody. Let's see who else. And yeah, Nicole, repping New York Knicks. Okay. All right, New York City. And this is not my hat, everybody. I don't like elephants, but I borrowed this hat. It's an elephant hat. So that's the reason why I got an elephant on there. So
Who'd you borrow from? Who'd you borrow that hat from there, baby?
the missus loves elephants. Everything in, we got like all these trinkets of elephants. It's Jay Holmes. Okay, thank you for putting that information in the chat.
All right, we got the hat. Look at Andy with her hat on backwards. It's looking good. Louis, what kind of hat you got on there? You got
It's one of the things I do an event for, a 150-man kayak circumnavigation of Manhattan Island.
okay.
Jay Holmes, thank you for giving us the context of that hat. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you're just joining us, today is Hat Day. If you do not have a hat, it's okay. We are just sharing our different hats that we may have in our archive. So good morning to you all. Let's see, I'm just thinking of who else. Hold on one second. Good morning. Okay.
Russell, he's not showing up.
Yeah, no, he got kicked out, so I'm gonna put him back in.
Okay.
Welcome everyone. Today's Hat Day, Hat Day, Hat Day, Hat Day. Thank you for joining us. Just making sure everybody gets admitted. We loved and thank you for coming.
Thank you.
We don't have any more hats. Come on, people. Today's Hat Day. No more hats.
Yeah, Tina, how you doing in there? Tina, I know you got a hat in that house.
Yeah, I
Let's get
gotta
that
look
on.
for it.
All right, come on. Enjoy. Let's have some fun today. Let's have some fun today. Hey, Lonnie, where you at? You got a hat in the house? Hey, William Allen, what's going on? You got a hat in the house? Show your camera, put your hat on. We'll appreciate it. Come on, enjoy and fun. Steven, how are you doing? Oh, look at that hat. See, you got a nice looking hat. We appreciate that.
Loving the
You
hat.
had that today. I know you got a winter hat in there. We're gonna get rid of these hats. This is the last time we're gonna wear these winter hats and these hats.
I got my hat too.
All
I was
right.
thinking.
Noel.
Amanda Fitzpatrick, I see you just put on a hat. I love it. Love it. It says
I got
pink.
a question. Anyone can see me because I cannot see myself well.
We can see you, but you're blurry.
Thanks to millions of
Huh?
made
We can see you, Noel, but you're blurry. So I don't know if it's your camera.
protection of vaccines.
Yeah, because I cannot see myself well in my house.
Well, I think you got the camera behind, you got the light behind you, so turn around maybe.
Think about the belief in his broad.
All right, Robert Jackson's in the house. Appreciate you, Robert.
Over 7,000 children.
William, how you doing?
Pretty
You got a
good.
hat?
No,
You
no
gotta mute
hat.
yourself. How you gonna, a man of your stature don't have a hat?
Sorry about that.
Paige,
I'm
don't
already
worry
I'm already
about
out
it.
and about.
All right, I hear you. I understand. Appreciate you.
Paige, it's okay. It's too warm in your apartment, but that's a good thing because when it drops down to 22 tonight, you're gonna need that heat.
Bailey, can you breathe through the nose of that hat?
Yes, I can. Okay, Jackie. Okay, Jackie, tell us about that hat. I'm loving it.
So I have children who love Japanese everything, and this is their hat. And look at this.
Oh,
Love it, love it, love it, love it. Good morning, everyone. Mr. Roundtree, I'm loving it. Is that the Do the Right Thing hat or what? Am I missing something? It looks like a
Yeah,
mark.
it's a bike cap. So
Oh,
yeah.
it's a bike
all
cap.
right, that's
Okay.
good. We work with that. How you
Good
doing,
morning,
Mr.
everyone.
Roundtree?
Hey, doing all right. Good to see you all.
Mhm.
Welcome, everybody. Charles, just let me know when we want to get started, everybody. If you've just joined us, today is Hat Day at We Act. We're just asking you to put on a hat. Doesn't matter what it is, what it's for. If you like it, you can wear it at our meeting. Thank you so much.
Yeah, David, what you doing, David? I see you picking up. You got a hat for us?
Yes, sir. I do. Let's see. Can I show you my hat?
All right, there you go.
There
Good
you
to see you,
go.
David.
Good seeing you. Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure.
Hey, and don't forget to put out a call to join.
Charles, Vicente said he needs to be promoted.
Huh?
Vicente said he needs to be promoted.
Promoted to what? Promoted.
Interpreter.
All right.
Join React.
I don't have a promotion, and I thought we cleared that we have technical difficulties, that we were not going to move forward in that.
Okay, I will message him then.
All right, thank you very much. Somehow we did not click on the interpreter piece. And if he knows how to do it, does anyone need Spanish translation at this moment in time? Please speak up.
Yes, she does. Did she say one?
Huh? Fitz, Amanda? I can't hear you. What'd you say? Oh, what's it bad?
Amanda, turn off your video. Maybe your power is too much.
My dog just came in. Charles, you ready to get started?
Yeah, let's get started.
Okay.
All right. Let me share my screen.
We asked that everybody, if you're not talking, could you mute at this time? Thank you.
Okay, welcome everybody to our February membership meeting. Appreciate you guys all coming out. We look forward to a great meeting. As you already know, we'll put your name in the chat. Show your screen if you got a great hat. If you don't have a great hat, still show your screen because we like to, Emily, like your hat. And we'll continue on. Next slide. Today's meeting is Go Electric, No to Fossil Fuels, Yes to Health. Okay, we are having technical difficulties. Does anyone necessarily need, anyone who's struggling with interpretation?
¿Hay alguien que necesita interpretación?
Who needs it?
Yeah, it should be good to listen it also in Spanish for those like me. There, I've been here living like for 3 years, and I maybe don't understand like as much as you.
Okay, so we need interpretation. So we're going to activate it. Charles, do you?
I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to do that. I don't think I can. Hold up. I think I do. Hold up.
John Reddick, good morning to you, sir. How are you? That day, John.
All right, I'm apologizing for in advance. The system's not set up correctly, so unfortunately, only this meeting we're not going to have Spanish translation. Can you hang in there with us today?
Yes, yes.
Okay. It doesn't seem like I can pull it up. All right. Next slide. All right, everyone is welcome. Thank you very much for coming out. We already put our names in the chat. We already got the hats. So next slide. Ron?
In the chat. Since WEAC's mission, since 1988, we've worked to build healthy communities by ensuring that people of color and/or low income participate meaningfully in the creation of sound and fair environmental health and protection policies and practices. Next slide.
Good morning, everyone. This is Bailey, Manager of Membership and Organizing here at WEAC. Thank you so much. WEAC is growing and building power in Northern Manhattan, the city, and the country. By becoming a WEAC member, you will join thousands of new Northern Manhattan residents, fellow New Yorkers, and people around the country who are taking action to improve the environment and health of our community. We ask that you become a member today, and if your membership has expired, you can renew it. Please help us build power as we move forward to help our community and the world. I'll put the link in the chat. Next slide.
So there are a couple of views that we have. We have speaker view and we also have gallery view. I think everyone will probably be better off for using speaker view so you can also see the slide. And please, if you are not muted, mute yourself. Okay. And we will unmute you when it's the time to talk. Okay. So if you are muted, please mute yourself. I've muted. All right. And next slide. If you're on the computer, you can see here by this piece right here that the microphone is here and also the video camera is here. You just unmute, click on it. If you're on the phone, to unmute yourself, it's *6. Actually, to participate, it's and if you want to take yourself off camera, it's *9. Okay. The agreement.
Yes, so some community agreements, of course, be present and participate. There's one mic, speak from the I perspective, move up and move back, land your plane, and of course, respect others' points of view because this is a judge-free zone.
Thank you very much for that, Nicole. My name is Russell, and I'm on the planning committee, and we're going to talk about the agenda. We'll have an introduction for We Act for Environmental Justice, also Black History Month activity and tribute. Upcoming announcement from We Act staff, Planning Committee overview and presentation, myths about gas and health impacts, also Go Electric, No to Fossil Fuels, Yes to Health, also Out of Gas pilot, and we'll also have some closing words. Thank you. Bailey?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you again. This month, everyone, is Black History Month, and we're going to do a quick activity. So I want everybody to pay attention to what we're going to do. If you have a Black individual that you would like to recognize, whether they are famous or not, in 1 minute, I'm going to ask you to put in the chat. We're going to do a waterfall. So that person does not have to be famous. They could be the lady at 130th Street in Amsterdam who's the crossing guard. If you want to nominate someone for African American history this month, I want you to do it in the chat so everybody is aware of what we're going to do. So in 5 seconds, I want you to put the name of that person or persons in the chat. Okay, we're going to count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Everybody put a name of someone in the chat. Here's the waterfall. Great names I'm seeing. I see a James Baldwin, Adam Clayton Powell. Keep them coming, everybody. Desmond Tutu, keep it coming. Barbara Ann Green. I see Peggy Shepard. Okay. Kit Stewart, Malcolm X. Keep them coming, everybody. This is a waterfall. Keep it coming. George Washington Carver. I love it. MLK. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Cecil Corbin Mark. Okay, great. Serena Williams. Keep them coming, everybody. Keep it coming. We're going to keep them coming. Thank you. Langston Hughes. I appreciate that. Thank you. James Baldwin again. Any others? Put them in the chat.
And Henry Maxwell? That's interesting here.
Zora Neale Hurston, Malcolm X. Keep them coming, everybody. Keep them coming. Dr. Bullard, Robert the Dean, Billie Holiday, Fannie Lou Hamer. Keep them coming. Keep them coming, everybody. We'll do this for just another 30 seconds. Booker T, David Dinkins. Keep them coming. Keep them coming. Place it in the chat. Famous or not. Arthur Mitchell from the Dance Theater of Harlem, Barack Obama, Oprah Winfrey. So everybody keep them coming in the chat, and I will continue. Today, we're going to honor the Harlem Hellfighters. The 369th Street Black Infantry Regiment was an all-Black U.S. regiment named the Harlem Hellfighters, which formed during World War I. In the First World War, they became the African American Infantry Unit and spent more time in combat than any other American unit. Initially deployed to help unload supply ship, the regiment was then loaned to the French Army and spent 191 days on the front line. The Hellfighters received their formidable nickname from the Germans, Hallenkampfer. In German, that translates to Hellfighters, because most of the unit hailed from Harlem, New York, and the name stuck. The Harlem Hellfighters were lauded in Europe for their bravery, but when the war ended and the Hellfighters returned home, they faced racism and segregation from the country they bravely defended. The summer of 1919 was called the Red Summer and marked by violence against Black Americans at the hands of white Americans. This is who we are acknowledging for Black History Month. I want to thank you for participating. Keep those supplies coming in here in the chat, and I will pass it back on to Charles.
Announcements?
Keep them coming, everybody. I see it in the chat. Thank you so much.
Stono?
Thank you, Charles and Bailey. Hi, everybody. My name is Sonal. I'm the Director of Policy at We Act, and so I oversee all of our city and our state policy work. I want to invite you all to a really great event we are having this Wednesday, this upcoming Wednesday, from 9:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Though if you can't come the whole time, that is okay. We're having an advocacy day where we are virtually talking to lots and lots and lots of our legislators, our senators, and our assembly members to ask them to sign on and try to pass a couple bills that we find to be very, very, very important for this year. One is continuing from last year that we're still really trying to push, and we'll give a special thank you to Senator Jackson for already co-sponsoring and supporting the bill of the Safe Cosmetics and Personal Care Act. This bill is what I've talked about before, where we're trying to get toxic chemicals out of our soaps and shampoos and our makeup. There should be no poisonous chemicals in these products that we use every day that, you know, even when you put them on, then, you know, they can get into our waterway and get contaminate our water as well as our bodies. So it's really important that we get these chemicals out. Some of these chemicals are like formaldehyde, mercury, PFAS, which are like nasty chemicals that hurt our endocrine system and cause cancer. All of these should be taken out of our products. And that's what this bill is trying to do, is it's banning that statewide and requiring the manufacturers of products to disclose ingredients. So they have to be more upfront about what ingredients are in their products than they are now. There's a lot of ingredients in our soaps and our shampoos that that's not listed on the back, that is not clear that they're there, and they hurt our health. So we're trying to get that bill passed. So that's what we're going to talk to our legislators about on Wednesday. The other one we're going to talk about is our cumulative impacts bill. This is something that we act as leading advocacy for across the whole state. What we are trying to do is say enough with communities of color, lower income communities like Harlem, Washington Heights, and Inwood, getting toxic facilities like power plants and bus depots and sewage treatment plants being placed in our neighborhoods over and over and over again on top of each other. Because what that does, right, is we get the air quality, the poor air quality, the water contamination, the hazardous waste in the same neighborhoods over and over and over again. And all together, it creates a neighborhood where our health is getting hurt. So it's really, really important that we stop that from being able to happen. That's what that bill is doing. It's saying you cannot put another facility in a community that already has a lot of facilities in it that are toxic. So these are the two bills that we're trying to talk to our legislators about on Wednesday. You can join me. You'll get all the instructions. You'll get to join meetings. And really all you do is talk about why these things might be important to you. Why do you care about these topics? You can pick one, you can pick both. It's totally up to you. In addition, we're going to have a special training session the evening before for 1 hour, where we can talk more about these bills, talk more about how we do advocacy to get everyone ready and feeling confident for the next day. So you can sign up for both of those things. Thank you all. If you have any questions, you can email me, and we're putting the links in the chat so you can RSVP.
Okay. Annie?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Annie. I am the climate justice organizer at We Act. I got my hat on backwards because if it's forward, I can't see the screen and you can't see my face. We, after a very successful campaign to end the use of fossil fuels in new construction in New York City, we are taking our fight to the state. And we're fighting for a gas-free New York. So we have legislation, the All Electric Buildings Act, that we are trying to pass this year, which would end the use of fossil fuels in new construction starting in 2024. And so we're having a rally this coming Thursday, February 17th. We're starting at 12 p.m. The rally will be until 1 p.m. And we're gonna actually stay in that location and flyer the event that's happening, because we are trying to bird dog Governor Hochul. And so if you don't know what bird dogging is, we're basically going to an event where we know she's attending, and we're going to try and talk to her about our bill. So it's going to be a really fun event. We'll be there all day. So even if you can't make 12 p.m., but you want to come and flyer with us at 3 or 4 p.m., sign up at the link I'm going to drop in the chat, and I'll get in touch with you with more details. But we're going to take our fight to the state, and we're going to win. So I hope to see many of you there with us on Thursday. There is no bird dogging teaching. We will teach you how to do it when you get there. And it's very easy. It's really standing with the group and chanting and having a good time. So the link is in the chat. And this is me again. So I want to do like a quick show of hands. Who in this meeting lives in an older building and wastes a lot of energy to either heat their home or cool their home in the summer? Seeing some hands go up. And who in this meeting maybe has had trouble currently or in the past with dealing with mold or lead or asbestos in their older home? So we know that Northern Manhattan particularly has a lot of old housing that is not very energy efficient. And we also know that New York State's weatherization program is not always distributing money equitably. And so WEACT is leading the charge on the Energy Efficiency, Equity, and Jobs Act, also what we call EJA, which would really put guardrails on how New York State spends money to weatherize for their weatherization programs, to make sure that low-income neighborhoods, environmental justice neighborhoods are receiving their fair share of weatherization funds, and are also addressing underlying conditions in their apartments like lead, mold, and asbestos, which typically prevent a household from getting energy efficiency upgrades. So we are launching our campaign with a teach-in happening February 24th on Zoom. I'm going to drop another link in the chat where you can sign up. It's a really important bill. We want to make sure that the state is standing by its equity requirements that it laid out in the CLCPA, and this is part of how we do that. And so, yeah, if you're interested in hearing about how EJA can benefit you in your home, apologies, please join our teach-in on the 24th at 6 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Hello, my name is Pamela Stewart Martinez, and I am a community organizer with voter engagement. And I am so excited about the upcoming candidate forums that are going to happen starting April 9th through to May 16th. So the federal candidates are going to be speaking to us on April 9th, May 14th. The state Senate candidates, state assembly is going to be on May 16th, and May 14th is when we have, well, the dates are a little off, it seems like, on this flyer, but I will be sending you the links in our chat right now so that you can actually click on the link and it'll have the date and everything. It'll give you an opportunity to meet the candidates who want to represent your community, hear more about their platform, ask questions about issues that affect our neighborhood. And on to Bailey.
And actually it'll be Emily Marte. Emily?
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Marte, and I am the chair of the WEACT Planning Committee. So the Planning Committee, it was created around 4 or 5 years ago from what I remember. That's when I joined, by one of our organizers in the hopes of creating a liaison between our community and WEACT and their endeavors. So if you want to be part of this dynamic, please get involved and participate, so that you could always be in the know on WEACT plans and even initiate your ideas and or other community members' ideas to solve our community issues, or to even help reveal and magnify our community or organization strengths, our weaknesses, potential opportunities that are out there that we just don't know about, threats that could be out there that we're just not aware of. And it could be even from governmental level, things to consider. So having all hands on deck would be amazing. So definitely consider joining the planning committee. And look out for a link that we'll be putting in the chat at the end of this part of the planning committee presentation. Next slide, please. So what is the purpose of the We Act Planning Committee? The purpose of the We Act Planning Committee, as listed here, is to oversee the planning and implementation of member initiatives. So us as members, we want to solve our community issues, and we do it through the planning committee, which we represent the entire community. So we try and do as much as we can through these planning committee meetings, through effective communication between membership and staff. So we're basically like a liaison between the two, and to represent the general membership for the population of the Upper Manhattan community's goals, and encourage that this population participate. So there's so many unique people in Upper Manhattan, and ways to participate. And we can't possibly show all those strengths within this population on our own. So that connection to the community is super important, and we try showing that through the planning committee. So if you feel that there's some kind of a representation that's off, get involved. Also to assist the executive body or management in We Act, in meeting organization goals to ensure effective governance within We Act. And lastly, to set up a pipeline for leadership development. So depending on what we demand, like advocacy, like more training on how to be better at advocacy, or grant writing, lobbying, better at understanding environmental justice and how to just like strengthen things like this. This is a great way to do that. We could ask for those things here in the planning committee, and they're usually and always granted to us. And I will now pass it to Nicole to talk about membership.
Thank you so much, Emily. Next slide, please. Great, everyone. Hi, my name is Nicole. I am a member of the Planning Committee. So the Planning Committee consists of 9 members. So we have 8 We Action member and then 1 Vision member. And a Vision member is someone that is outside of We Act's catchment area. So currently you can see here on this graphic, We Act's catchment area encompasses community boards 9, 10, 11, and 12. And we encourage equal representation from each community board within We Act's catchment area. We have people from Washington Heights, West Harlem, East Harlem, even our Vision member who is in the East Village. So really making sure we're keeping a diverse group. So like Emily said, making sure that there's representation for Northern Manhattan. And all We Act members are democratically elected by the We Act membership. Thank you so much. And I believe I'm passing it over to Ronald.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How are you? Yes.
Hey, sorry, Ron. It's me.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much for that, Nicole. And once again, good morning, We Fam. I'm Russell from the Planning Committee, and we're talking about the qualifications for the Planning Committee. The Planning Committee shall consist of those members democratically elected by the larger membership body. The Planning Committee members shall be in good standings with their membership dues and shall have a history of active participation in We Act's projects like EHJLT, the working groups, events, membership meetings, attendance, and volunteering, etc. So I'll pass it on to our Vice Chair, Brittany.
Good morning, everyone. Brittany's having some technical issues, so since Bailey again, I'll be doing our first working group that We Act has is the Beauty Inside Out Working Group, which was created to develop the campaign strategy and to help our community make better and informed choices about beauty products. As part of our Beauty Inside Out campaign, we're surveying girls and femme-identifying people of color between the ages of 13 and 17 that live in Northern Manhattan, which again, we comprise of West Harlem, Central Harlem, East Harlem, Washington Heights, and Inwoods, and the South Bronx. The survey will help us better understand how and why girls and femme-identifying people of color consume beauty products, personal care products, and how this might affect their health. The Beauty Inside Out Working Group meets bi-monthly on Wednesday from 5 to 6. Could you mute yourself? Anyone that's on the call, could you please mute yourself? Thank you.
It's done, Bailey.
Wednesday is the next meeting, Wednesday, February 16th at 5 p.m. The contact is Sophia Huda at sophia.huda@weact.org. Next slide.
Uh-oh.
Our second working group is the Civic Engagement Group. It's responsible for building WEAC's voter and civic engagement campaigns, starting with this year's federal, state Senate, New York State Controller, State Assembly, Attorney General, Lieutenant Governor, and Governor races. This group meets the first Tuesday of every month. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, March 1st at 6 p.m. The contact for this group is Pamela Stewart Martinez at pamela@weact.org. Next slide, please. Our third is our Climate Justice Working Group. The Climate Justice Working Group at WEAC is focused on policies and projects that will rapidly, safely, and equitably end our reliance on polluting fossil fuels, while also keeping our communities safe from inevitable effects of climate change. The Climate Justice Working Group wants to ensure that the voices and ideas of the environmental justice movement are leading the transition to a green economy in Northern Manhattan and beyond. The next meeting for this group is going to be Tuesday, February 22nd at 6 p.m. And just a note, starting in March of 2022, the group will be meeting on the third Tuesday of the month. Your contact is Annie Carforo at annie@weact.org. Next slide. We have our Energy Workforce Working Group. The Energy Workforce Working Group aims to advocate for equitable clean energy transition for all communities, especially those disproportionately burdened by environmental health hazards. A key element for this working group is ensuring that green jobs needed to get us there are available to New Yorkers. The group meets the first Wednesday of every month. The next meeting will be on Wednesday, March 2nd, 2022 at 6 p.m. Your contact is Charles Calloway at charles@weact.org. Next slide, please. And lastly, our Healthy Homes Working Group, which builds on WEAC's legacy of leadership and indoor environment. Our Healthy Homes Working Group is comprised of WEAC members working together to identify and implement solutions to improve their indoor environment at the city, state, and federal levels. The group meets the second Tuesday of each month. The next meeting will be on March 8th, 2022. And the contact there again is Charles Calloway at charles@weact.org. Next slide. I'm now going to pass it on to Ronald Thomas.
And good morning, everybody. My name is Ronald Thomas. I'm from the Planning Committee. And I'm rocking my ski hat today. It's a John Claude Keeley ski hat from the Olympics in 1972. What are the responsibilities of a planning committee member? Number one would be setting the monthly membership meeting agenda, along with other members of the planning committee. Number two, assemble via Zoom 2 to 3 times per month. Number three, plan the annual membership meeting with staff and other planning committee members. Number four is endorsing policy campaigns subject to executive approval of the upper executive boards above us. Number five, members of the planning committee will have the responsibilities to solicit ideas from the broader membership and be a liaison to executive leadership and WEAC board of directors. So we ask that you be imaginative in your vision for the future of WEAC. Next slide.
Great. So Nicole again. Hi, everyone. The membership of the Planning Committee will be for a period of 2 years, which constitutes a term. So members may serve 2 consecutive terms, so that's a total of 4 years. And then after that, they will have to step down for a duration of 1 year. And once they've sat out for that 1 year, they'll be able to apply again for re-election. So allowing people to join and make sure that we're getting a diverse group and different people every 4 years, I think it's really important, and we're really excited to get more people to join. Passing it over to Bailey.
Good morning, everyone. As we wrap up this planning committee presentation, you've already been advised on what is the purpose of the planning committee. You understand what is membership, the qualifications. We've reviewed what are the working groups, which we have 5, and also the responsibilities of being a planning committee member. WEAC members who wish to become a member of the planning committee must submit a formal application, including a headshot, to the planning committee chair. Applicants will make a formal request to be a planning committee member at an upcoming general membership meeting, meaning once you submit your application, in order to be approved for the general membership, you will come back in either May or June to present why you should be a member of the planning committee. So I will put a link in the chat. The deadline is going to be for May 6th, 2022. So everybody understand, if you want to be a part of the planning committee, you must submit an application. You must make a presentation to the general membership meeting, and all of that is going to be due by May 6th of 2022. I am going to turn it over now to our Director of Policy, Sonal Jessel. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Bailey. So for our main topic today, we are talking about gas. What is gas and what are the myths about it, and why is this an important topic? I'm sure a lot of you have heard us say over and over and over again that we're trying to get natural gas out of people's houses. We're trying to get off fossil fuels. We're trying to go electric. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about what does that all mean? And then we're going to talk about Annie, who is leading our Out of Gas pilot project, is going to talk about what's going on with that and why all of this work around natural gas is so important to us. So today we have a great speaker who is going to set some knowledge for us and answer any questions everyone has. But before that, I want to just go over a couple definitions for everyone, so we're all on the same page. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. The things I'm going to define are methane, gas, and this term we're hearing a lot, which is decarbonization and electrification. Next slide. So methane, very much like carbon, which we hear about all the time when it comes to global warming and climate change and fossil fuels, methane is a greenhouse gas. And greenhouse gases are all those gases that exist in the earth that when they are combusted or burned or used for energy, they warm our planet. And that is what's creating climate change and our climate crisis. Methane is actually the most potent greenhouse gas, meaning that it's just a lot stronger. It's 25 times more potent than carbon. And why that matters is because we're always talking about how we need to reduce our use of carbon when we are talking about combating global warming. But there's also other greenhouse gases that are really important, and methane is a big one because especially in New York City, we use a lot of natural gas, which is where methane mostly is coming from for us. So next slide. What is gas? This is also known as natural gas. It's the thing that we have in our homes. We turn on our stoves, we have gas, we heat our homes, it's with natural gas. The national grid, our gas bills is all natural gas pretty much. And natural gas is it's a gas mixture made up of a lot of different things, but primarily the biggest ingredient in it is methane, which is that greenhouse gas that comes from deep, deep, deep in the earth. Natural gas is considered a fossil fuel. The way that you get natural gas, you might hear the term fracking or hydraulic fracturing. That is generally the process for getting natural gas out from deep, deep, deep in the earth, which is where it sits. And the way that we get gas in our homes, it's delivered through pipelines. And that's, I'm sure a lot of you participated in shutting down pipelines or not wanting new pipelines to be built, or just heard about that. That's all about not bringing more natural gas into our energy system. The biggest ways where natural gas shows up in our everyday lives in New York City is particularly when we're cooking and when we're heating our homes. One thing that you hear a lot is that natural gas is a clean fuel. It's clean. That we consider it, WEAC to be false. We don't think that's true. Natural gas, when you burn it, does really hurt your health, and it does create methane, which, like I said before, is a greenhouse gas and contributes to our climate crisis. So it is not clean. It is a problematic fuel source that we want to see less of and we want to get rid of, essentially. And that's why we do a lot of the work that we do around stopping gas or banning gas or getting out of gas. That's what we're talking about, is not using this fossil fuel anymore. You can see this little picture here. It might be a little bit hard to read, but it's just a little interesting photo that I thought was well done about where gas and oil and coal actually comes from. It's basically old organisms or like marine animals that died and were buried into the ocean thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago and spent a lot of time essentially decomposing, I guess, and turning into these substances. All of these substances, when you are talking about them all together, when you're talking about gas and oil and coal, petroleum, all of these things, those are all fossil fuels. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about fossil fuels. So when you hear about we need to get off fossil fuels to stop the climate crisis, that means we need to stop using gas, natural gas, and all of these things that come from deep in the earth so that we're not hurting our planet anymore. Next slide. Thank you. So this slide is about what we view as a route to not using natural gas. It's what we consider one of our main solutions, the idea of decarbonization and electrification. Decarbonization means we're not using carbon. Really, that means that we're getting off fossil fuels. We're not using fossil fuels because all fossil fuels are made up of carbon, and then we also have methane in there. And then the second piece is electrification, which is what we want to do. We want to electrify our homes so that we can get our energy source from renewable energy. So things like solar, geothermal, wind, all of that can create electricity. And so we want to have electricity as our main power source so that our energy can come from these renewable sources instead of fossil fuels. Electricity can also come from fossil fuels. That is what most of you have at this point in time. Your electricity is coming from a power plant. But that's what we're trying to change. We're trying to change that source of electricity as well. So in this picture, which I know it might still be a little bit hard to see, but you can see how a house, and this is also applicable to apartments, can function without fossil fuels. You can see a little picture of solar panels. That might be a source of electricity that is not gas. You have electric cars that are being charged with a battery. Again, that's electricity. That's not burning oil to run your car. You have a heat pump at the bottom left, which is a more efficient way of heating and cooling your home. That also runs on electricity. And ultimately, we get our electricity from renewable energy sources. And an important piece here, which we're going to talk about more today with Annie, is there's an induction cooking stove. So our stoves, which is the thing that we see gas from the most in our homes, don't use natural gas. Instead, they use electricity. And there's a lot of reasons why we want to see that. So this terminology about decarbonizing and electrifying, it's all about let's get off fossil fuels in our homes not use things like natural gas, not use things like oil, not use things like oil to run our cars, and let's move to solar and wind and these other sources of energy that don't come from deep in the earth. So those are some basic definitions that you're going to probably hear today. You can go to the next slide, Bailey. So now I would like to call up our lovely speaker, Stephen Roundtree. Stephen serves as Vote Solar Senior Regional Director, focusing on advancing solar policy in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. His work focuses on building partnerships to achieve socially just renewable policy. Prior to joining WEACT, as many of you know, Stephen worked as a community lawyer at WEACT for a couple years. He fought for more inclusive solar and energy efficiency policies in the state and in the city. He also helped design the first in the nation's Solarize campaign for a dense urban community, which is in northern Manhattan. And he negotiated construction and local hiring for the project based on community input. Stephen is originally from Dunstable, Massachusetts, if I pronounce that correctly, Stephen. He holds a BA in history from Boston College. He has a JD from Northeastern School of Law and a master's in environmental policy from Vermont. Stephen's passion for energy justice, which maybe Stephen will define for everyone, is equaled only by his love of birds and riding his bike, as you can see by his hat today. So Stephen, I'll hand it over to you to talk about why gas is so harmful, why it's important for our health, and what we're doing about it.
Great.
And please, everyone, put your questions in the chat. We'll ask Stephen questions when he's done.
Great. Thanks so much, Sonal, and thanks for having me. Great to see everyone here. Yeah, first of all, just want to give a shout out to WEAC's sort of methodology here. It's so exciting that you guys were able to be spearheading the movement to ban new gas in New York City, and I'm excited that you're taking to the state and also working at the local level to get folks change over onto electric heating. So I'll just say like a few words about sort of what I do, and that was a great introduction, Sonal. I work in the solar space in particular, and sort of thinking about and planning for the grid of the future that we need, and pushing state decision makers on sort of stepping into making the right choices on solar and our energy system in general. So I'm working solar now, but as someone mentioned, with WEACT, I was really focused on buildings, and so my heart is still very much in the building space. So I want to just jump in and start talking about some myths about gas that you may have heard, and sort of getting a little bit to the truth of those, and then we can just sort of jump in with some questions. We can tangle some of those. So as Sonal sort of is hinting at in the definitions section, which I love, gas is a harmful climate pollutant that's also really dangerous to have burning in your home. And despite that fact, there's a lot of myths. So first myth, gas is a bridge fuel to renewables, and then it's cleaner burning. People heard this one? Can you show of hands? People heard it's bridge fuel. Bridge fuel is good for you. Great. It's like very much something that's been put out there. So in fact, as Sonal mentioned, methane is super dangerous to the planet all the way through its life cycle, from when it's extracted from the ground until it gets into your home. So, as we know, gas is right now, it's harvested through this process called hydrofracturing, where basically you're pumping chemicals into the ground to break the bedrock, crack it up, that contains this trapped fossil gas. And so a lot of that gas escapes as methane into the atmosphere, causes climate pollution at the source, right? It also does other things like pollutes water, changes water tables, all these different things, causes toxic pollution at the source, right? But then it travels in pipelines from where it's fracked to where it's used. Locally, that's a lot of it's from Pennsylvania, up through New York State to our homes, all the way through those pipes, it leaks raw methane, which is, powerful greenhouse gas into the atmosphere. And it's really hard to hold gas companies accountable for that. So they're saying, hey, listen, it's clean fuel. It actually does, it is true that burning natural gas produces less CO2 than, say, petroleum. I think that's kind of where that comes from, but it's totally, negated by the fact that it's producing a ton of methane. And furthermore, the conversation about putting in gas infrastructure now, or continuing to use infrastructure now, as sort of a bridge to renewables, we're reducing and then we'll eliminate. We don't have time for that. And so when you're thinking about the timescales of what we need to do for, stopping the worst impacts of climate change, if we had 60 years and you're saying, well, don't worry, we'll put in a gas stove and then or a gas heat. And by the time, we need to change over the next time, the technology will be there and whatever, you can move on to electric. There's just no time for that. And so saying it's a bridge, it's truly a bridge to nowhere at this point, and is really locking in further fossil. So, not a bridge to renewables, not cleaner overall, even if you're saying it's less CO2 per burnt gas. Great. Second myth, gas is safe. Anyone heard that one? Safe. Show of hands, gas is safe, anyone? Well, the stuff is not safe. So I'm from a region in Massachusetts called Merrimack Valley, and maybe some people knew a couple years ago there was a really tremendously bad gas explosion in the region where 25 homes, whole communities exploded. The roofs were torn off homes because some goof made a mistake with the gas lines. And this has also happened recently in Harlem, happened just the other day in Queens, where there's a dreadful explosion that could have killed people, ruins people's homes and their lives because of the gas in their homes, right? And this happens all the time, and it's often not in the news, even to the extent that it does happen. So, we're using pressurized explosive stuff in our homes, for one. And for two, as becoming sort of clear lately, gas is really bad for your health in your home when you're burning it, right? So I don't know, there aren't really other examples of people just burning stuff in their home. If you're hey, I really would love to have a campfire and burn marshmallows in my home, you would not, or you'd be very much not likely to just build a wood fire in your home because of the smoke. It's not what we do, but all fire causes smoke, whether it's, visible smoke or invisible smoke. And in fact, burning gas, produces high levels of, the chemical always escapes me, but I think it's nitrous dioxide, NO2, which is a chemical that, is regulated by the EPA. And in fact, when you're cooking with gas in your home, it produces a level of NO2 that's 4 times higher than what the EPA allows for outdoor air. And these chemicals can linger in your house for the whole day if you've been cooking. So it's also, it's not just NO2, it's carbon monoxide, which is an asphyxiant, formaldehyde, which is a poison, and also fine particulate matter, like fine dust that causes asthma. So you can be, have all sorts of respiratory irritants, things that cause asthma, COPD, different diseases just from cooking this in your house, not to mention the fact that it's also leaking raw methane, which contains these chemicals and is also contributing to the climate crisis. So your gas stove is just constantly leaking methane, and when you cook with it, causing stuff that makes you sick and gives you asthma. Homes with gas stoves are 40% more likely to have asthma suffering people in them than folks who cook with electric. So that's just more reasons that people saying gas is safe. It's not. It's dangerous. It blows up and makes you sick. Third myth: gas is still best for cooking. You guys ever heard this? We're cooking with gas. That's a straight up phrase. Have people heard this one? Show of hands. Cooking with gas. Yes. Thank you for indulging me. Yeah, this is a very pervasive myth, and I think people who are cooks or people who are chefs, we must cook with gas. I've definitely heard this a lot. And it's a marketing thing. The idea being like you can sort of modulate it. If I grew up cooking with an electric stove that did sort of just get really hot immediately. Like you turn it on, and it's too hot or it's not hot enough. What we've got now, and Annie will tell you more about it, is induction cooking, which basically uses magnets, electromagnets to heat the cooking vessel versus just a raw flame licking it. But basically, induction stoves can modulate temperature. They can change temperature up and down like really finely and really accurately, to the same or more sort of accuracy than what you think you're getting for a gas stove. And they also don't make your home hot, for one, even if you don't count the risk of explosion and the toxic chemicals in your home. So people are saying like, oh, like gas is best for cooking. Like it's just not true. It's spin. And I think it's really important to note that the factors that the other factors make it really not, important not to do that. Final myth that I'll share is that gas is affordable. It's affordable. It's affordable. You ever heard this one? And I think the industry will sort of tell you like, well, we can't get off this. We need this. People need gas. Sure. The gas system, the fact is the gas system is tremendously profitable for fossil fuel companies and utilities, which is why they continue to push gas, even though they know it's literally killing the planet. Meaning they're still fighting for subsidies for replacement to gas. They're pushing to make sure pipelines get through. They're building pipelines, then asking everyone to pay for it through their electric rates. And they're basically dragging people out of holes to build pipes through places like North Brooklyn and across the trying to build across the New York Harbor and all through the Hudson Valley and et cetera, et cetera. So when you use gas, you're paying for both the gas you use, the actual volume of gas per therm you use, as well as you're paying to maintain those leaky ass pipes that are bringing gas from where it's fracked to where you use it, and it's quite expensive, and the utilities pass all the cost right back onto you. It's also less efficient, energy efficient at the source. So when you're burning gas, like like you're just creating a flame and it's heating the pan or whatever, but you're also losing a lot of the thermal energy while you're doing that. You actually convert only about 40% of the thermal energy from the gas flame into the cooking food, where induction, it's about 80%. So you're actually getting a much more efficient transfer of gas. As we go from dirty electricity to clean electricity, the overall system cost for electricity and the amount you can expect to pay will be reduced as well. And so, induction stoves, electric stoves are affordable now, and there's we have every reason to think they're going to become more and more affordable moving forward. Not to mention, as we like to talk about it, we act that the expanded costs, the overall affordability to the whole world is much lower, because you're not having to send someone to the hospital with an asthma attack, or you're not having with like really health problems later on in life because of this. So when we think about affordability, we don't just think at the source. We really we act like to think about the expanded sort of universe of what costs people have to occur to that. So those are some of the sort of quick debunked myths about gas, and again, which is why it's so exciting that we actually was doing this on two fronts, working in the community to get folks off of gas, and also wringing necks at the city and at the state level to make sure that we are stop digging this hole of fossil fuels by banning new buildings from being on fossil fuels. And yeah, as I've noted before, like the alternatives are there, they're ready, they're cost effective. Just a matter of having the will and having the finances lined up from the state, which has a lot of resources to get this done. So that's that. I'd love to turn it over to your comments. There's a lot in there already. So Sonal, maybe I'll let you.
Yeah, I can moderate that for you. Thank you very much, Stephen, for all of that information. That was really illuminating. And I'm seeing in the chat some people, surprised about the health impacts of cooking with gas, even though we all do it every single day and have never really thought about it before until hearing this information. And a recent study came out that a lot of us have been seeing that was really scary, that Stephen talked about, which is even when your stove is off, it's leaking methane. And when you turn your stove on, within minutes, the gases released and the toxic fume released are actually exceeding what the EPA considers a safe level. So we have a really big problem that's in all of our homes. So there's a couple questions here that I want to have Stephen answer. The first, maybe Annie would want to answer this around what the rough cost of conversion from gas to electric stove. I think that's a little bit complicated because it depends if your home needs special electric wiring to take on the load of electricity. So it is a little complicated, but Annie, do you have like a general number if you want to put one out there?
I don't have a general number, but I would, we have done some like preliminary studies of like how much energy does it take to heat up a pot of water on an induction stove versus a gas stove. And what we're actually seeing is that it costs less in utilities to heat on the induction stove because of what Stephen said. These stoves are so efficient and they work so quickly, which I'm going to talk about a little bit in the next presentation. But we are trying to get like some real, numbers through our study of what the cost is of going electric. So I will get back to you with a more general numbers soon.
Thanks, Annie. So a question I want to throw to Stephen is, one person is mentioning that one of the great issues that are talked about is that there's not enough renewable energy to meet the demand that we have. And therefore we need to use bridge fuels, or continue to use some natural gas. So, what do you have to say about that?
Sure, I appreciate the question. So, I mean, it's definitely true that if you're like, hey, we need to shut off every fossil generation source and every fossil cooking source right now, we would be in some trouble because there aren't enough solar panels, wind turbines, and hydropower. We'll just use the state of New York as an example. There isn't enough to meet our needs now. And so that's why it's really important that the work that we do and the advocacy work we do is all about making sure that the system of the future gets built. I think there's been a lot said, and there's sort of new research and reinforcing research emerging that, you don't need, like in general, you don't need fossil to create system reliability, even in the future where if we're using, if we have electrified sort of heating sources, we have a lot more electricity in general. But yeah, there is a transition that needs to take place, right? But I think it's just like where the rubber meets the road. It's not saying like, oh, well, we don't have enough now to do this. It's like, we know how to make it. Like literally, we have all the pieces of the erector set on the ground, and it really just comes down to like making it happen as fast as possible and saying like, we need huge. We have the Office of Renewable Energy citing like we need a 25 megawatt solar farm here pronto. Great, checking all the boxes. It's going to be, we have enough system reliability with that and some big batteries to shut down this fossil plant, or what have you. Or we're building solar at the source, more rooftop solar in New York City to the point where we're not going to have a sort of a bottleneck of getting electricity on a hot day when everyone is using their air conditioner or something like that. So yeah, a transition is necessary, but the transition needs to happen real fast. And for my money, and I think a lot of people agree with me, it's like it needs to happen faster than people can sort of like decide like, well, think about it. The state really needs to put its money where its mouth is and just say like, we need to invest in this stuff like now, because it really needs to be like solutions oriented. There's so much to talk about there, but yeah, that's my quick take.
Thank you, Stephen. And something that I think connected to that question, I think is good to talk about is, what about the concern that if you're on electricity and something goes wrong and you lose your electricity, so you lose your power in some way, what else, and you have nothing else to use to heat your home, things like that. How do we go about that issue? How do we make sure people are safe? What might be an answer to that?
Sure. I mean, I would be the first to tell you that cooking and heating with gas is the same sort of problem. Like I grew up in a home that was energy insecure, and when the gas ran out to heat the home, you got cold. And that happened independently of electric system, whether or not you had it or not. So it's, there's always the risk of not having what you need, especially with our sort of difficult climate that we're coming into. But I think it goes to the other side of like, when there's more renewables in the system, particularly more local renewables, you're gonna have a system that doesn't fail as much. Right now, we're relying on the utility to bring your electricity to you. They're doing it at a profit. They're maintaining it at the sort of the minimum that they can. And sort of more renewables, more local renewables, more battery storage is going to make a stronger system, a more resilient system overall. But yeah, I think that's what I'd say there. I mean, obviously, yeah, the more you rely on electricity, the more you need electric service. Also, we act as leading the fight for public power. It's going to empower the New York State Power Authority to take more control over delivering electricity, and it's putting more power in the public space, less power in the private utilities who don't care whether you're okay or not. And so that's another way that WEAC is working on this. But yeah, it's always a concern. Strengthening the grid through more renewable resources, more local resources, I think is the way.
And quickly for everyone, Stephen, can you define a little bit about what the grid means?
Sure. So the grid, which you may have heard, it's the sort of network of electric lines from where power is generated at Niagara Falls, the power plants, all the way down on the big wires that you see going up and down the highway to substations, those like weird jungle gyms of electricity, to the local power grids where the power is coming into your home. That's the grid. It's regarded as the sort of the largest and most complicated machine ever in the history of the human civilization, and basically brings us our electricity.
Thank you, Stephen. So another great question we have is about home affordability. So if we put electric stoves in new buildings that are all electric in environmental justice communities, there's a concern that lower income people or even middle income people aren't able to move into those homes because maybe they're nicer and more expensive. What are we doing about that? And do you think that's a problem that exists?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I'm curious to hear what Annie thinks of this. But I just feel like electric stoves are not tremendously more expensive than gas. And just for the health reasons alone, like it really shouldn't be like a question. I think there's a lot of issues that WEAC deals with is like, well, if you can buy yourself out of buying products that kill you, right? Like if you're like, oh, I'm going to spend a couple extra dollars for a hair product that doesn't contain parabens or something like that. We see that as unjust, and there should be no sort of gradation of like, oh, if you can't afford a home that's not going to kill you, you can still live in one that will. And I think that's just that's a stand that I think we need to take from that perspective. But also, like, then you need to turn around and say to decision makers who are allocating huge pots of money to do these programs, that like they can't be equivocate about how this how the world is going to look and how they're spending money on what type of stoves and supporting low-income communities. So yeah, I hear that concern, but I think for me it's all about like really just making sure that the policies are right and that you're doing sort of fair things for everyone.
Thanks, Stephen. And one thing we'll add is, we've seen a lot of studies done. So like Rocky Mountain Institute, which we work closely with, found that it almost costs the same to build a building from scratch that's all electric versus a building that uses fossil fuels. So in terms of a developer building a new building and charging you more, they don't really, there's not a justification financially for doing that anymore. Maybe that used to be the case, but now we're seeing that gap close a lot. So building electric actually is I think it's like a 2% difference, which is not very much at all. What we're working on at WEACT is around that affordability piece. Once people are in those buildings, how do we make sure you can afford to pay your bills? Which takes me to the next question, Stephen, is right now, generally electricity, paying your Con Ed bill, especially right now, is more expensive than paying our national grid bill. Do you think that's always going to be the case? What do you see coming in the future around that difference?
Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, I think there's, I guess what I'd say is like there's so much goes into producing fossil fuels. You're like buying land, you're like digging it up, you're building these pipelines, you're maintaining the pipelines, you're like trying to avoid the risk, you're like setting fires in everyone's home. A renewable system is just like much less maintenance. Solar panels, for example, just sit out there and make sunlight. And Vote Solar does a lot of like modeling, like climate and grid modeling. And we're looking at a world that's fully saturated with renewables. There's a ton of solar on the grid in New York, and that cost of electricity is way down. And so the cost of electricity is down, and there's no cost of fuel because you're not using it. And so, overall, like the gas infrastructure ends up sort of dying out and being repurposed and being sort of scrapped, and overall costs are going to go down. I think we'll put this back in the myth section. You have the gas people, the gas barons of the world saying like, well, it's going to be so expensive if you try to go off gas, and it's just like, that's their talk. I mean, like the sun is free. The thing is blasting energy at this planet at all times. And I think if we think about that and how sort of accessible that energy is and can be and is continuing to be, then I don't think, ultimately we should be, worried about prices going up because we're paying for more electricity than gas. And again, it's just way more efficient at the source per energy you're using. And, I think it's something that we should be really excited about and not really worried about.
Thank you, Stephen. I'll go through like 2 more questions and then we're going to hand it up to Annie to talk about our project we're doing about getting gas out of people's homes and studying a lot about it. Stephen, can you tell us about solar? We have a couple questions in here. How can solar best be used in New York City? And what is the time frame for solar use in New York City?
That is a great and complex question. So the simple answer for me is the best world. I mean, we use a lot of electricity in New York City. There's people living in stacked buildings. There's a lot of use here. This part of the state is where sort of like more of the electricity is being used. The upstate and Western New York region is where a lot of electricity is being sort of generated. And it's having to travel over the electric lines to New York City, right? So the sort of most efficient, sort of best future for New York City is it's got solar all over it, like particularly at the rooftop scale. It's got solar on every single building roof, every carport. It's got it on bridges over the Gowanus Canal. Whatever you can imagine with solar, it'll be there. But solar in New York City is incredibly fraught with challenges, right? So we have old buildings with old creaky roofs that aren't really great for solar. They've got stuff on the roof. You can't put solar there. There's a fire code, which requires little walkie lanes around the rooftop. With the issue of battery storage, you can't put batteries in most buildings in New York City because of the fire code. There's also landmark codes where you can't see, you're not be able to see this solar. So it is challenged, but there's such a huge need because of the sort of amount of electricity we need to generate here. So we have several peaker plants in New York City, and there's power plants in New York City that are generating right here. And also we have so much energy use from the fossil, on-site fossil sector with like buildings as well that need to be replaced with electric. And so to the extent that you can put solar locally, that's going to be the best way to do it. The time frame is like we need it years ago. And so any change we can make now, any sort of stink we can make to allocate more money is going to be really important. Right now, I'm working at Vote Solar with Jasmine from your team on advising and commenting on the plan NYSERDA has, in New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, their plan for spending $1.5 billion on incentivizing solar and doing it in New York City and doing it in a way that really benefits disadvantaged communities and sends the money and sends the benefits back to disadvantaged community members, and doing that the best way. But yeah, we need 14 gigawatts of distributed solar in New York State by 2030, and we need a lot of it downstate.
Thanks, Stephen. And I'm just gonna throw you one little tiny baby question before my last one, which is, we talk about community solar a lot at WeAct. So can you tell folks exactly what that means and like how that benefits them if they buy into it?
Sure. Community solar is neat. It's basically a system where you've got a large solar array, a large solar panel that can provide benefits to people in different places. So if you can't have a solar panel that plugs in directly to your roof, you can still say, hey, I'm going to like pay a little bit every month and be a member of this sort of larger solar garden, if you will. You can get the benefits of that solar generation, pay a little bit into that solar farm, and then get a little bit more benefit from the electricity generated there. So, you could have a solar farm in another borough or somewhere else in the city on top of a warehouse that you're getting benefits, or you're getting a bill discount through solar energy from your bill. So it's a format that really works for serving people who otherwise can't be solar customers.
Thank you, Stephen. And I'll tell everyone that I have community solar. I signed up and I'm saving like 10 to 15% on my utility bill every month, which feels great. And you save more in the summer when you have, more sun and more solar energy, but in general, that's sort of how it breaks down. So it's pretty easy to sign up. I encourage everyone to do it. Chris just put something important in the chat there on that. So last question, Stephen, before we hand it to Annie. Ron asked, what are some policy solutions? What can we be doing on the state level, the city level? What are a couple of big things? You mentioned public power, but what other kind of quick solutions do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, right now, some ways people can get involved is, obviously the CLCPA, the big climate law the state put forward, is in the process of evaluating the scoping plan. So there's an open comment period for the large scoping plan for how the state's going to tackle the climate crisis and meet these decarbonization goals. And so for me, I think the real important thing is just really get the state to be spending more money on solar downstate in actual incentives and funding targeted toward the community, and not necessarily the sort of supply side. So right now, like a lot of the solar sort of incentives are going to people who are building solar and not to people who are trying to get solar in their communities. So yeah, we really encourage people to get in, look at that document, make sure that your needs are being met, and comment on that. And obviously, like working with WeAct on sort of getting the message together would be really important. Also working on the solar roadmap right now, that sort of plan to spend $1.5 billion on solar right now. Also, just talk to your legislators about CLCPA, CCIA, which is the bill that WeAct is working on as part of New York Renews. It's going to pass a large carbon fee to make carbon polluters pay for getting us off fossil fuels. Right, that's a big bill, and really speaks to the larger need to get some money into the system, because it's going to cost. It takes treasure to change the way this thing looks as far as our energy system. So working on CCIA, working through the administrative process with some of these comment periods are great ways for WeAct members to talk also with the city about the fire codes and the landmarking codes, like make it safer for solar, easier to get solar on roofs is really important.
Thank you so much, Stephen. So everyone, please thank Stephen for joining us today. He has so much knowledge and only shared like 1% of it. So hopefully he comes back and gives us lots more information, particularly about solar. Thank you very much, Stephen, for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, Sonal.
Yeah. And so just a quick plug that I put in the chat around the policy question. If you're wanting to get involved, be active about this issue, the best place to do that is through WeAct's Climate Justice Working Group, led by Annie. And what we do in that working group is work on a number of different policies and also projects around climate justice, getting off gas, improving our neighborhoods, preparedness for climate change like flooding and heat. All of these things are very related. So please join us there. And so, oh yes, Bailey?
No, so I just want to, everybody, I put it in the chat. If you're interested in that climate justice working group, I put the link in the chat, and I'll put it in again. If you're interested, that meeting is coming up pretty soon. So please come and join us.
Thanks, Bailey. So now I'd like to turn it over to Annie to bring this conversation home. What are we actually doing to figure out how switching to electric stoves works, what it costs, how it impacts people, where WEACT is actively working on it now. And Annie's going to talk about that. Over to you, Annie.
Thank you, Sonal, and thank you, Stephen, for being here. Every time I hear you speak, I'm just amazed at how much you know and how smart you are. So thank you for sharing some of that knowledge with us. If we could go to the next slide. Great, thank you. So I'm here today to talk to you guys about a really exciting pilot project WEACT is leading called Out of Gas and In with Justice. And before I talk about this, I do want to pay tribute to the late Cecil Corbin Mark, who really crafted this Out of Gas pilot project. This was his vision for the community, and it was a passion project of his. And we know that Cecil's legacy lives on in many, many, many ways. And this is just one of those examples. And we know this project would not be happening today if it was not for Cecil. So I do want to give that tribute there. But what are we trying to do with Out of Gas and with Justice? So in the push to get off gas, and I think Stephen and Sonal just really laid out why gas is so dangerous, and especially why cooking with gas is so dangerous. We know that it's really harmful to your health, that stoves leak methane, which is a really potent greenhouse gas emission and contributes to climate change, and that people who live in homes with gas stoves have a higher likelihood of having respiratory illnesses like asthma. So we know that we need to electrify, but we also know that electrification needs to be done equitably. And I saw a comment in the chat, which was spot on. It's important work to be stopping the building of new fossil fuel infrastructure through these gas ban legislations. But what is that doing for residents of affordable housing who maybe are not moving into those new buildings? So at WEACT, we wanted to study the feasibility and the benefits of electrification for affordable housing residents, which resulted in our Out of Gas In with Justice pilot project. So in a gist, what we're doing is we are running an air monitoring pilot project that's studying the benefits of induction cooking on indoor air quality in NYCHA public housing. So as you can see in this picture, we have one of our awesome participants who just received their induction stove. And we're going to be measuring the change in air quality over time in her apartment to see how it changes from switching from a gas stove to an induction stove. And I'm going to get into a little bit more detail about how exactly we're doing that. But I do want to highlight the real benefits of induction cooking. These induction stoves are super powerful and super efficient. They can heat a pot of water in 2 minutes. If it's a big pot for spaghetti, it could heat it in like 5 minutes. It's very safe. So with induction cooking, the way it works is, as Stephen mentioned, it's electromagnetic currents. So the pots that we use are all metal, and every household that receives an induction stove also receives a 12-piece set of new cookware. And the stove and the pot actually they connect with each other, and the electromagnetic movement is what heats the whole pot. And so food heats up really quickly, it heats up really evenly. There's very little energy waste when you're cooking with induction, and it's really safe, like I said. So the actual stovetop does not get hot except for right where the pot is sitting. So you can actually put your hand right on the stove while you're cooking, and you won't burn yourself. And so we're really excited to give this like high-tech equipment to our participants and see how they transition to away from gas and towards induction cooking. So we're doing this pilot study with our partners at Columbia University Mailman School of Public Health, along with Berkeley Air Monitoring. And we're also doing a sister pilot project up in Buffalo, New York, with our partners at Push Buffalo, who are recruiting affordable housing residents to install both induction stovetops as well as air source heat pumps. And so we're going to be getting a lot of, we're going to be sharing a lot of resources and information with Buffalo and seeing how that project spans out as well. Can we go to the next slide, please? So what are the overall goals of this pilot program? We want to study the change in air quality over time in our apartments, in the pilot apartments that receive these induction stoves, and also compare it to the control apartments. So again, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail of exactly how we did this, but we're going to have some households that are going to receive their stove at the beginning of the study. Other households are going to keep their gas stoves, and we're going to look at the difference in air quality. We're also going to study the challenges of electrification as well as the benefits. We know that this is not going to be easy for affordable housing. I just saw a comment in the chat, you know, NYCHA has a backlog of maintenance issues. The buildings are old. You know, we're learning a lot already just on how much electrical load the building can handle. And so we're, you know, learning a lot already about how hard it is going to be to electrify, but also how critical and important it is, and also how hungry people are for it. And that's another big part of the study is kind of studying and following participants' reactions to using induction stoves and transitioning away from gas stoves. We know, as Stephen and Sonal both mentioned, like there's a lot of propaganda out there that tells you that cooking with gas is better. And we really want to put out positive propaganda about induction cooking and education materials to help people with that transition and to kind of show them that it's not as hard as it looks. It's actually a lot cleaner, a lot better. It's better for your apartment. It's better for ventilation. And, you know, our first participant, when she received her stove, within an hour, she had made a pot of rice, and she said that, oh, wow, using this induction stove is, you know, just as easy as my gas stove. And so we are going to be, you know, putting out a lot of education materials and also really talking with participants throughout the process and understanding their process of switching over to induction cooking. Next slide, please. Next slide. Not sure who's running the slides. Thank you. So how exactly are we doing this project? This is a real inside look at the technicals of what we're doing. So we recruited 20 apartments in a NYCHA building, and we had a lot of limitations with that. Particularly, like I was saying, we learned that in this specific building, we were only allowed to choose 2 apartments per line because we don't want to risk overloading the electrical infrastructure in the building and blowing out the power. So we recruited 20 apartments and we did a baseline air monitoring. So we put these little home health boxes, which you'll see in the bottom left corner, in people's apartments for 1 week. And these home health boxes are, you know, they're like very small, like the little size of a lunchbox, and they suck in air for a week and they measure for carbon monoxide, for carbon dioxide, for ozone, for NO2. And we wanted to see what the air quality looked like over the course of the week in these apartments with their gas stoves. And to make sure, these boxes are very sensitive. So for example, if you vacuum in your house, the box will pick it up and it will show, you know, a bump in air particle in air pollutants in the apartment. So what we wanted to make sure that when we're measuring the changes in air quality, we are measuring what's due to the stove and not due to, you know, external factors like you opening your window. So we also installed temperature loggers on people's stoves so that we could get a reading of every time their stove got hot. And that's kind of a sign that they were using their stove. So we can measure when the stove gets hot and look at that timestamp and look then at the air quality at that time when the stove is in use. So now that we've done all the baseline air monitoring, we're splitting our participants into 2 groups. One group is the control group, and they're going to keep their gas stoves for the next 4 months. And we're going to do 2 more weeks of air monitoring over the course of the next 4 months. And then the other 10 participants are our pilot apartments, excuse me, and they're going to receive these brand new induction stoves that I was just talking about. And we're going to also measure the air quality in their apartments for 2 weeks over the course of the next 4 months. And we want to see what this change looks like. And, you know, measure, you know, the change over time of how air quality is impacted by switching to induction cooking. So next slide, please. So we're really like in the throes of this project. we installed the first stove in our pilot participants apartment last week, which you might have seen that picture on Twitter or on one of our social media pages, and I just showed it at the beginning. And we're going to be installing the remaining 9 pilot stoves in the other 9 pilot apartments next week. And the reason we did this again is because we are really we're studying the process as well. And so with NYCHA, we wanted to make sure that the building, you know, adjusted well to this new electric stove that we put in, this new induction stove. And so then after having it installed for a week, NYCHA gave us the green light. Okay, everything is looking good. Let's install the other 9. In 2 months, we're going to go back into all 20 apartments, and we're going to take another week of we're going to do air monitoring for another week and take in that data and see what the apartment's air quality looks like in the apartments that still have their gas stoves versus the induction. And then again, we'll do that one more time in another 2 months. So at the end of 4 months, we'll take another week of air monitoring before we offer induction stoves to the control apartments as well. So at the end of this study, all 20 apartments are going to have an induction stove. The building that we're doing this at is part of NYCHA's plan. It's going to be the first all-electric building in NYCHA's portfolio. So they are very excited to be working with us on this, and we're very excited to be able to offer the participants, you know, really high quality equipment. And also, you know, the education materials and the cookware and all of the things that they need to be successful in this process. So we're going to hopefully have some results to share with you guys in a couple of months. You know, we're working with Berkeley Air Monitoring to assess the data and really kind of paint a picture of what's going on when we switch to induction cooking. And so, yeah, it's very exciting, and it's really great to be able to interact with people who are getting these stoves and getting their real honest takes on what it's like to cook with induction. And I have to tell you, they are all positive. And so it's, you know, encouraging that despite the propaganda that the gas industry is putting out there, there is this movement to electrify is gaining momentum. And what we really need to make sure is that it's accessible to everybody. So that's the Out of Gas In With Justice pilot project. I just want to make one more plug, if we could go to the next slide. That, you know, this move to decarbonize and electrify, there's a lot of moving pieces in it. There's no one right answer. And a big part of this is to make sure that we are not installing any more fossil fuel infrastructure in New York State. And so I want to make one more plug. If you are available on Thursday at 12 p.m., I would love for you to come join us at Times Square for our Gas Free New York rally. There will be more details in the link when you register. And also I can give you a call or an email if you register and give you more information. But, you know, we want to win this year. And so we would love to see some of you at that rally on Thursday. And with that, I'm happy to answer some questions about our pilot project. And I'm not sure if anybody was monitoring the chat and can give me some questions, but one thing I see is a question about utilities. So this is something that we're studying in terms of the challenges of electrification. We do want to make sure that when we talk about, you know, an equitable transition, that we are not overburdening low-income residents or residents of affordable housing with really high utility bills. And so we are looking at what the spike in utility bills may be from going electric. And something, though, that we are finding in the very preliminary studies, like I mentioned, is that using a electric stove, even though right now electric might be more expensive than your gas bill, using this induction stove is so efficient and cooks so much faster that people are using less energy, and they're actually using, you know, it costs less money to use the induction stove to cook than it would to use your gas stove. And that's some, you know, very early basic findings that we're seeing, is just like the energy usage is so different because you don't need to use a lot of energy when you're cooking with the induction stovetop. But we do want to see, you know, what is happening to people's utility bills, because that is going to be a concern for folks, and we want to make sure that costs stay affordable.
Annie, there's a question from trying to monitor the chat, but there are a lot of stuff coming in. Joel asked the question, are the PM 2.5 emissions from gas stoves, what are they? Do you know that?
That's a great question. We are measuring for PM 2.5 emissions and PM 10 with those home health boxes. The specifics of that, I don't know, maybe Stephen or Sonal know the specifics, but I know that our boxes are also picking up, like I said, carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, NO2, and ozone.
Yeah, I think I don't know if there is more specific maybe to that, of just that they're monitoring for it. And I guess we'll see like how much PM 2.5 and PM 10 doesn't exist because we're using an induction stove. So that will be like an interesting finding. We expect it will be better.
Right. So I guess the other question, I mean, the thing is that's what we're trying to compare, right? The pollution that's in the apartment. So PM 2.5, we all know that exacerbates asthma in the respiratory system. So that's one of the things we're trying to conclude and making sure that the induction stove is healthier than the gas stove, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, one other really exciting thing about this project, like I said, is we're creating a lot of materials that are very pro-induction and teach people, meet people where they're at to teach them how to use induction cooking. And so we're gonna in time be releasing, a number of videos with an excellent chef who, specializes in induction cooking. Her name is Chef Sia, who has been able to conduct both cooking classes with our participants who are getting their induction stove so that they feel prepared to use the stove in their home. And is making a series of videos to walk through, the basics, how to use the oven, which also very exciting for participants, can serve as an air fryer, as well as a convection oven and a regular, bake and broil oven.
Okay, we have a question. Do you mind if I allow him to ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
Unmute yourself. You see your hand raised. You got to unmute yourself. You're muted. Unmute. Can we hear you now?
Hi, Fabian. I don't think we can hear you, unfortunately.
All right. So why don't you put the question in the chat? Okay. Anybody else have another question or two? Raise your hand, please.
So I see the question about, we know that NYCHA residents do not pay for their electricity, and we know that electricity costs are a concern. And so part of Buffalo's pilot project is really going to study solutions to keep costs down, because they're not only replacing induction stoves, they're also replacing the heating systems with heat pumps. So they're doing kind of the full package, where in a multifamily home, we were more limited. We couldn't take the boiler out of the building, even though we would love to. And so we're going to be, and their participants are not, public housing residents. And so their utility bills are coming out of their own pocket. And that's something that we're going to be, working with them closely on, is making sure that we keep costs for utilities down for the participants in the study.
All right. I have another question from David. David, you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, hello?
Yes.
There we go, you can hear me. Okay. Starting next year, as you know, I'm in Audubon houses, and starting next year, they are saying that we will start be paying for our electric and gas bill. So how would that affect us with the electric stove?
Yeah, thank you so much, David. And that's what, that's what we're studying through this project, like I said. So we want to really, we want to understand the real impact of electrification on affordable housing residents. And this pilot project is, the first step in that. And then working towards, as Sonal said, we're working on a lot of parallel tracks, and we're also working to make sure that utility costs are lower for New Yorkers, because there's a lot of things going into that push as well. And so this is kind of happening simultaneously. But what we don't want, if we want to make sure that we are doing an equitable transition, we don't want to spike utility bills on people because of electrification. And so that's really what we're working on in studying in this project.
Annie, Fabian's question, so he couldn't be, but he wanted to know where the stove's located at. We talked about Buffalo and here in the city, but I guess he wanted to know where are they located?
Yeah, so we do have permission to share the address. This is NYCHA's first building that they're trying to make their first all-electric building, and it's in the Bronx, on Watson Avenue, 1471 Watson Avenue. So the participants in that building are, very excited to be given this opportunity.
I just really want to connect the solar and the electric. So that's why it's really important that we start getting renewables in the city, so that way we can actually reduce the cost of these electric stoves and then produce healthy apartments. If we get the solar that we want, it will actually reduce the cost. And if you guys, once again, look to join a community solar piece, it would help you reduce your cost of your energy costs. So something that we got to look into. Any more questions?
I see Anthony's hand up, and then Paige.
Yes, thank you for the information. On those building and other buildings for NYCHA, it's NYCHA planning in the future to change their wiring or upgrading to accommodate the change and, implementing those stoves?
That's a great question, Anthony. Thank you for that. And yes, they are. I think the end goal for this building is that every participant, not just the 20 that we're working with, receives an electric stove or an induction stove. And part of that is investing heavily in the infrastructure in the building to make sure that it can support that energy load. And so, we had to do a lot of rewiring in the apartments that are participating so that they, can take the stove, and over time, NYCHA is going to have to really upgrade this whole building and a lot of their portfolio. But I think the positive that I see is that NYCHA is really investing the time and the attention and the energy to doing that.
Paige?
Thanks. This is a terrific program. Annie, can you give us a sense of of the budget? Like what is this pilot program costing? Like what does it cost to upgrade 10 apartments to induction, or 20, just so we can get a sense of as this gets scaled up, what would it cost, or what would it cost for an apartment building, a private apartment building that wanted to do this to, per apartment?
That's a really great question. We have our budget for this project, and we are working with Association for Energy Affordability, who's been helping us with a lot of the electrical work and the installations of the stoves. I will get back to you with how we hope to scale this, because I think that there is that's been a question that we've been thinking about as this project has really been getting underway. We're really at the very beginning stages. We just completed the baseline air monitoring. And so we want to, once the stoves are installed, I think it will have a clearer picture of what the costs are and is this scalable. But I think that the answer to that is this is, and it's necessary. And so we want to make sure that, we're learning from how we're doing it, and maybe even figuring out ways to do this more effectively or efficiently.
Love it.
Hello, my name is Beth, and I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I have a question. The question is, it's not in reference to NYCHA. In a private home, what is the minimum and max energy level is necessary to have a induction stove in usage in that location?
That's a great question.
That's a great question, and I actually don't have an answer to that, but I'm happy to look into that and also ask our partners who are much more informed on the technical side of this about what the energy load really looks like when you're using one of these stoves.
Okay, so we're coming close. If we don't have any more questions, I just wanted to say thank you. And I want to go back to an important slide that we really want you to come out to. And Sonal, you're there still? Sonal?
Yes, I'm here.
I just wanted you to kind of reiterate your slide for the upcoming events that you're having. I'm
Okay.
gonna put it back up, this one right here.
Thank you,
Just kind
Charles.
of close us out on that.
Yeah. So everyone, please join us this Wednesday. It's from 9:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. on Zoom. But if you can't come the whole time, that's totally okay. Come for a couple meetings if you can. We're talking to legislators in the states, or senators or assembly members, as well as their staff members, about these two important bills that we want to see passed to protect communities like Northern Manhattan, around not having so many toxic polluting facilities in the neighborhood and getting toxic chemicals out of our cosmetics and our soaps and shampoos. We need you guys to pass these bills. Really, legislators listen to members of the public. They appreciate knowing that the things that we're asking for are actually problems to everyday people all the time. And so it's really important for you all to come and share your stories and just say, like, we don't want another toxic facility in Harlem, and this is why. And we don't want formaldehyde in our shampoo, and this is why. All of that is really, really actually so helpful to moving this stuff forward. So please join us. And then the evening before, you can meet with me for an hour. We'll talk about these bills. We'll talk about how to advocate. Any questions you guys have, we'll get them answered for you. So please join us.
Yeah, so the plan is, if you register with us, you'll get the link for the workshop the day before. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, so if you register for the 16th lobby day, you'll receive an automatic email back confirming, and then there'll also be a link in that email for the 15th event. Alternatively, Chris just put in the chat both links for both events.
All right. So we really need you guys to support each other. It's a we thing, right? We all need to be on this one. It's very important that we get this done and we show some power and voices from our community to participate, for you to participate in this piece. All right. So do not be shy. I know we have some great people here. I'm hoping that we have a great turnout for the workshop and also for the advocacy day. And as you know, that without you, we can't get this done. And without you, we can't build a healthy community. And so we have a we thing going. All right.
Charles, can I make a last plug?
You can make the last plug.
Good morning, everyone. Bailey here, manager of membership and organizing at WEAC. Just want to say thank you, one, for attending, but I also want to emphasize the need for people to apply for our planning committee. The planning committee currently consists of members that are in our community. So they're definitely hearing your concerns and want to advocate for a clean, safe and healthy environment, not just for Northern Manhattan, but just for around the city and our state. So I want to thank our chair, Emily Marte, our vice chair, Brittany Goodwin, and all the members of the planning committee for the work that they've done. They have families, they work full-time, just like a lot of you. And we really want to just thank them for their participation and advocating for sound and health policies that not only affect us, but our coming generations as well. So I'll put the link in the chat. If you're interested, please, May 6th is the deadline.